The hot afternoon sun rested gently on the roof of the massive white mansion. A black Jeep slowly drove through the tall golden gate and stopped in front of the house. The door opened, and a tall, handsome man in his late 30s stepped out. It was Mr. Gabriel, one of the most respected and successful billionaires in the city. But he wasn't alone. From the other side of the Jeep, an old woman carefully stepped out with the help of her son. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped a white walking stick. She wore a long, simple gown and dark black glasses that covered her weak eyes. Her face looked tired, and there was sadness hidden deep within her wrinkles. Yet, the moment her hand touched her son's arm, a small smile appeared on her lips. It was Mama Gabriel, Mr. Gabriel's blind mother. "Easy, Mama. We're home," Gabriel said gently, holding her hand with care. "This place smells different," Mama Gabriel whispered, trying to take in her new surroundings. "It doesn't smell like the village, it smells clean, rich, and peaceful." Gabriel smiled warmly. "You'll be more comfortable here, Mama. You've suffered enough." Tears gathered in Mama Gabriel's blind eyes. "My son, I never thought I would leave that small village," she said with a shaky voice. "Even though I can't see, I'm happy to be with you." Gabriel hugged her softly. "You are not just my mother, Mama. You are my hero. I wouldn't be where I am today without you." As they walked slowly toward the entrance of the house, Mama Gabriel asked quietly, "And your wife, where is she? I would love to greet her." "She's inside the room resting," Gabriel replied. "You'll meet her soon." Mama Gabriel paused, facing the house with her hands on her stick. "I wish I could see. I want to look at your mansion with my eyes. I want to see how far my little boy has come." Gabriel gently touched her shoulder and smiled. "One day, Mama. One day you will see again. But for now, just feel the peace around you." She nodded slowly, her heart swelling with both joy and worry. She didn't know what the future would hold inside this house, but she was glad to be with her son at last. They both entered the sitting room, tall ceilings, shining tiles, golden chairs, and wide windows. Mama Gabriel sat carefully on a soft couch. She reached out and touched the fabric, feeling its richness. "I pray this house becomes a home for me," she whispered under her breath. And unknown to her, something darker was waiting within those walls. The sitting room was quiet and peaceful. Mama Gabriel sat gently on one of the soft leather couches. She held her white stick close to her chest and slowly moved her fingers along the edges of the seat, smiling lightly. It felt soft and smooth under her hand, very different from the wooden bench she used back in the village. Though her eyes could not see, her heart was filled with a gentle joy. She was finally in her son's house, far away from the loneliness and hunger she had endured for years. Mr. Gabriel watched her with love in his eyes. Then he stood up and said, "Mama, let me go and call Janet and Elizabeth so they can welcome you properly." "Okay, my son," she replied softly, nodding her head. Gabriel walked away and went upstairs. A few minutes later, the sound of heels echoed through the tiled floor. Mrs. Janet, Gabriel's wife, appeared. She was tall, light-skinned, and wore a tight, shiny red dress. Her face was full of makeup, and her expression was sharp. She forced a small smile as she walked slowly into the sitting room behind her husband. "Mama, this is my wife," Gabriel said with excitement. "Janet, please greet my mother." Mrs. Janet looked at the old woman sitting quietly on the couch. A blind, village woman? In her living room? Living in her house? The thought made her stomach turn. She was not happy at all. But in front of her husband, she had to pretend. She bent slightly and said with a fake smile, "Good afternoon, Mama." "You're welcome." Mama Gabriel lifted her head in the direction of her voice and smiled kindly. "Thank you, my daughter. God bless you." Mrs. Janet didn't say a word after that. She just nodded and walked toward another couch far away from Mama Gabriel. Just then, Elizabeth, the maid, entered the sitting room, wiping her hands on her apron. She smiled brightly and said, "Good afternoon, Mama." "You're welcome, Ma." Mama Gabriel turned her head toward her. "Ah, thank you, my dear. What is your name?" "My name is Elizabeth, Mama," she said respectfully. "I work here as a maid." "God bless you, Elizabeth. Thank you for welcoming me," Mama Gabriel replied with warmth in her voice. Elizabeth smiled and returned to the kitchen. But Janet sat quietly, her face growing cold. Inside her heart, she was angry. She looked at the old woman sitting calmly, and bitterness rose in her chest. "How will I cope living under the same roof with a blind, old woman, she thought to herself. Marriage has turned into taking care of a blind mother-in-law. She crossed her legs and looked away, refusing to say another word. To her, Mama Gabriel was nothing more than a burden. But she didn't know that the very woman she despised held a story, and a truth that would shake the entire house. Mama Gabriel, sitting quietly, had no idea what Janet was thinking. She only smiled softly and said in her heart, God, please let me find peace in this house. The morning sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky with soft colors of gold and blue. Birds chirped outside the mansion, and the air was fresh and quiet. Inside the house, the sound of a wardrobe opening and closing could be heard from the master bedroom. Mr. Gabriel stood in front of a large mirror, adjusting his blue designer suit. It was neatly ironed, and the color brought out his confidence and charm. He looked every bit the successful businessman that he was. After spraying a little perfume on his neck, he picked up his briefcase and walked toward the bed where his wife, Mrs. Janet, was still sitting. Janet, he called gently. I'll be leaving for work soon, but I want to have a quick word with you. She turned her head lazily. All right, I'm listening. Gabriel reached into his pocket and brought out a bundle of cash. He placed it gently on the bed beside her. Here, he said. Use this to take care of Mama while I'm away. Get her anything she needs, food, clothes, whatever she asks for. Janet picked up the money slowly and stared at it. Her face twisted a little. What about me? She asked. Won't I go to work too? You will, Gabriel replied. But for now, I need you to take a close look at her. She's blind, she's new here, and she needs support. I'll send your own money later today. Janet sighed and looked away. I'm just doing this because of the love I have for you, Gabriel. You know I don't like this kind of arrangement. I don't want to be a babysitter to an old woman. Gabriel nodded slowly, understanding her mood. I know, and I really appreciate it. Just be patient. It's not forever. She said nothing more and placed the money on the side table. Gabriel smiled and leaned forward to give her a light hug. Thank you. I'll be going now. All right. Take care of yourself, she said softly, still avoiding his eyes. Gabriel walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. As he reached the stairs, he glanced back once and then continued down to the front door. Unaware of what the day might bring, he entered his car and drove off to work with peace in his heart, believing his beloved mother was in safe hands. As soon as the sound of the engine faded away, Mrs. Janet's face changed completely. The fake smile she had worn earlier disappeared. Her eyes became hard, and her lips tightened with anger. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the gate for a few seconds. Then she hissed loudly and began to speak to herself. So this is what Gabriel wants, she said bitterly. He wants to turn me into a maid, to take care of his blind mother? No way. It won't happen. I didn't marry him to start serving an old village woman. She picked up her phone and threw it on the bed angrily. Her heels clicked hard against the tiles as she stormed out of the room. She should not even try to cross her boundary in this house, Janet muttered under her breath. If she does, I'll deal with her. Downstairs, Mama Gabriel was sitting quietly on the same couch she had rested on the day before. Her walking stick was by her side, and her black glasses sat neatly on her tired face. Her back was slightly bent, and her hands rested on her lap. She looked around with her blind eyes, hoping to hear someone nearby. The silence made her uncomfortable. She was hungry, weak, and her body was beginning to ache from sitting too long. Then she heard footsteps, soft but steady, coming into the sitting room. Who is there? Mama Gabriel asked gently. Mrs. Janet stood still and said nothing. She simply folded her arms and stared coldly at the old woman. Her heart was full of anger, and she had no pity in her eyes. Please, who is there? Mama Gabriel asked again. I need water and food. I am hungry. Elizabeth, is that you? Still, no answer. Mama Gabriel raised her voice a little, still polite but desperate. Elizabeth, my daughter, please, I haven't eaten anything. Can you help me, please? Then suddenly, a loud, harsh voice broke the silence. Stop shouting, you this blind woman. Janet snapped. There's no food in this house. Or did you bring any food along when you came from the village? Mama Gabriel's face dropped in shock. She turned her head toward the voice, trying to be sure. My daughter, are you the one? She asked softly. Please, I am very hungry. Can you just help me with a little food? I'll be very grateful. Mrs. Janet rolled her eyes and hissed. I can see that you're not just blind but also deaf. I said there's no food, and I don't have your time. With that, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking again across the tiles. Mama Gabriel sat still, confused and deeply hurt. The words she had just heard from her son's wife were like sharp knives to her heart. She wasn't expecting such cruelty. Her hands trembled a little, and her throat felt dry. She slowly leaned back on the couch and whispered, "Oh Lord, is this how life will be for me in this house?" Her stomach growled with hunger, but her soul ached even more from the pain of rejection. Still, she stayed calm, hoping and praying that this was just a bad moment and not the beginning of something worse. Elizabeth stood quietly by the corner of the dining room, pretending to clean a shelf. But her eyes were fixed on what had just happened between Mrs. Janet and Mama Gabriel. She had seen and heard everything. Her madam's voice had been loud, harsh, and full of insults. Elizabeth's heart broke as she watched the old woman sit helplessly, holding her stomach in hunger. She wanted to speak, to defend Mama Gabriel, but she knew better. In this house, silence was safety. Talking back to Mrs. Janet could cost her the little job she had, and her family depended on her. After her madam stormed upstairs, Elizabeth quietly walked into the kitchen. She opened the small cupboard and found just a little rice and stew left. It wasn't much, but it was enough to fill a hungry stomach. She quickly warmed it, dished it into a clean plate, and carried it out with a bottle of water. "Mama," she said gently, "please come to the dining table. I got you something to eat." Mama Gabriel turned her face in her direction, surprised. "Ah, Elizabeth, my daughter, thank you. God bless you," she said as Elizabeth led her slowly to the dining table. She helped her sit down and placed the plate before her. The aroma of the food filled the room, and Mama Gabriel smiled weakly. It smells nice," she said softly, taking a spoonful. After a few bites, her face lit up. "Elizabeth, your food is sweet." Elizabeth smiled shyly and replied, "Thank you, Ma. I'm glad you like it." As Mama Gabriel ate slowly, she began to ask softly, "So tell me, who are your parents? And where do they live?" Elizabeth paused for a moment, then said quietly, "I lost my dad when I was still a little girl. My mother and I live here in the city. We're just managing the little we have." "Oh, I'm so sorry about your father," Mama Gabriel said with care in her voice. "But I hope my son is paying you well. And tell me, is he aware of what you just told me?" Elizabeth shook her head gently. "No, Mama, he's not." "But why?" Mama Gabriel asked with concern. "Why haven't you told him?" Elizabeth smiled sadly and said, "I came to Lagos to work, Mama, not to be consoled. I don't want pity. I just want to do my job and support my mother." Mama Gabriel nodded slowly. She admired the young girl's strength and humility. "You're a good girl, Elizabeth. May God bless you for showing me kindness." Elizabeth looked at the clock. "Mama, please eat your food. Let me quickly go and tidy the house before my boss returns." "All right, my daughter. Thank you," Mama Gabriel replied as she continued eating with a soft smile on her face. The sun was slowly going down, casting an orange glow across the sky. A soft breeze blew through the mansion's compound, swaying the flowers near the gate. Just then, the sound of a car engine broke the calmness. Mr. Gabriel had returned from work. His black Jeep pulled into the compound and parked neatly in its usual spot. The driver stepped out and opened the door for him. Mr. Gabriel stepped down, looking tired but still carrying himself with dignity. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, and his face showed the signs of a long, stressful day. The front door opened quickly, and Mrs. Janet came rushing out. Her face was full of smiles. She walked towards him with open arms. "Honey, welcome," she said cheerfully. "How was your day?" Mr. Gabriel gave her a faint smile. "It was fine," he replied, "but very stressful. So many meetings back to back. I'm just glad to be home." Mrs. Janet took his briefcase and held it for him as they walked slowly toward the house. "How is my mother?" Mr. Gabriel asked suddenly. At that moment, Janet's smile disappeared. Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt a knot in her throat. She had not checked on Mama Gabriel all day. She didn't even know where she was at that moment, whether in the sitting room or in her room. She's fine," she said quickly, forcing a weak smile. "She has been resting all day." Gabriel nodded without looking at her. "I hope she ate well." Janet kept quiet, not knowing what to say next. Just then, Elizabeth walked into the living room, wiping her hands on her apron. Good evening, sir. Welcome, sir, she said with a bright smile. Yeah, Elizabeth. Good evening. Please help me boil some hot water, Mr. Gabriel said kindly. I want to take my bath. Okay, sir. Right away, she said and walked towards the kitchen. Mr. Gabriel removed his jacket and loosened his tie. He looked around the sitting room for a moment, then turned to his wife. Let's go upstairs, he said. All right, Janet replied as they walked together into their bedroom. Even though she tried to act normal, her heart was not at peace. She knew that if Mr. Gabriel ever found out how she had treated his blind mother, things would go badly. But for now, she covered her guilt with silence. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for part 2. If you're just watching our video, please subscribe and turn on your notification bell, so you will get notified anytime we post new videos.